Welcome back to the Next Chapter Podcast. I'm excited to introduce to you Bari. She is here today. She is a mother of three beautiful children. And today, during our conversation, we are going to talk about her journey through motherhood, her professional journey, and what she likes to prioritize just for herself. So, welcome, Bari.
Thank you so much.
So let's start with when you were a little girl, what did you dream of becoming?
It's funny. I think when I was really little, I dreamed of becoming a mom.
Mhm.
I think I looked at my own mom who also had a career, but I saw the thing that drove her most and excited her most was always being a mom. And my grandmother and I had amazing examples set for me every day. And so certainly that was it. And then as I got a little bit older, I wanted to be Rachel from Friends, a buyer at Bloomingdale's. I mean, what else would anyone want to be?
That's really funny. And I asked that question because it's always interesting to start at the beginning and see if that's kind of where your journey went, or if it's not and you're at a pivotal moment, you can reach on what you dreamed of doing in the past to help pull you forward. So you dreamt of being a mother. We know that came true because you have three
Yes.
beautiful children. And what about the Rachel buyer from Friends? How did that pan
Well,
out?
I became a buyer at Bloomingdale's.
Well, there you go.
So there you go. I always set a plan for myself. I've always followed what I knew I wanted to do. I kind of set my goals and I really chased after it. It's funny. I don't think I thought about it this way in a long time, but a lot of the things that I said I wanted to do when I was younger, I
Hmm.
did do.
Wow.
I met my husband in college. He's my college sweetheart. We've been together over 20 years, and we joke. I think he thought I was joking at the time, one of our first, dates. And I said, one day I want to move back to Short Hills where I grew up.
Yeah.
And I want to raise my family. And I did. Um, and I became a buyer for Bloomingdale's and then obviously on to other wonderful career opportunities as well. So I feel like I'm somebody who sets goals and follows them, and they don't always work out so beautifully, but I gave it a shot, and I'm happy with where my life is right now.
And that's beautiful. And I want to point out that focusing on, kind of the goals. And what was important to also highlight is that sometimes it didn't work out kind of beautifully or exactly the way that you anticipated, but that you actually went after something, that you set an intention and that you went after it. So, kind of talking about goal setting for a moment. Can you talk about at what points did you need to kind of pivot to change different things?
There was a lot of pivoting, honestly. I started at when I was in college. I got an internship at Bloomingdale's,
Hmm.
so I went into my senior year with a job post senior year. And I was telling you a little bit before, I started work at Bloomingdale's 1 week after I graduated from Syracuse University.
Hmm.
And my longest vacation was my honeymoon and then maternity leave,
Yep.
which I'm not so sure people would call a vacation, um, until COVID happened. And that was really the only time I never not worked, since being in college. Um, so I definitely had these goals and I followed through with them. I wasn't at Bloomingdale's the whole time. I set goals, but I'm also not afraid of change. I think I
Hmm.
welcome change a little bit. So I was at Bloomingdale's for a while, and then I moved into wholesale, which some point when I was at Bloomingdale's, that was kind of before I started my family. And once my husband and I talked about, or even before we talked about it, but I had kind of dreamt about it. And I said, what's this going to look for? What is this going to look like for me?
Mm-hmm.
I always kind of wanted control. And so I had this idea that wholesale would give me a little bit more flexibility, hard work, but a little bit more on my own time, because being in sales versus being a buyer is more about your own goals that you need
Right.
to meet. However you manage to meet them, they need to be met, but it is certainly a little bit more on your own time rather than being, in a buying office and kind of bubbling up to that. But so I then went into wholesale at Vince Camuto Group, and I was there for over 10 years. And it was a great experience. And I learned the most that I ever learned in as far as a career was definitely my years there.
Mm-hmm.
I learned how to build a business, how to manage a business, how to launch a business, how to maintain a business. And I loved it. And then COVID happened, as it did to so many of us.
Mm-hmm.
And about 70% of my company was furloughed, which ended up being the best thing that could have ever happened to me at that time, because I had 3 children at home and a husband who was working from home. And it was the first time that I ever really got to be a full-time mom.
Mm-hmm.
And I had dreamt of being a full-time mom for all the years that I was working. I'm sure a lot of us kind of sometimes want what we don't have, and
Right.
then we get it and we want what we had. The grass is always greener.
Exactly.
But so I got it, and it was a really special time, I think. Obviously, with its own set of challenges, but also with a lot of rewards. And I think, I speak about this with my friends a lot of the time, that as challenging as COVID was, it was also probably definitely the most time we've ever all spent as a family.
Mm-hmm.
Doing the things that are in storybooks, playing
Right.
games, going for family walks, having family breakfast, lunch, and dinners. And that was amazing.
Mm-hmm.
That was amazing. There were parts of it that were amazing. And I was always a full-time mom at heart, but just the amount of time that I physically had in a day was split. And so for a lot of years, I felt like I was doing so much and everything, but not well.
Mm-hmm.
And so during COVID, for the first time, I really tried to do everything I was doing. I tried to do it really well. And then that kind of ended. And thankfully, even though that time was special, but it was, it taught us a lot, and then kind of on to the next chapter. And then the past couple years, I spent time really trying to figure out what my next path was going to be. And as much as I loved being in fashion and wholesale, I didn't see myself getting back to the commute to the city, to work travel, to basically time that I couldn't control.
Right.
And that's when my next chapter began, about a year and a half ago. I decided to become a real estate agent and really focus on my town where I came from, which is where I live, and the surrounding towns that I love, and I love this area. And I wanted to do something I think that mattered a little bit more to me. Not that I didn't love selling shoes, because I did, but a lot of the times, my company, it was like, you're saving the world with shoes.
Right.
And I never really felt like I was saving the world. I never really thought that. my world was always my family and my children. But I was in this company culture that was like, you selling shoes is saving the world. And so on this next path of mine, I'm certainly not saving the world, but I'm doing something that I think is a little bit more meaningful, is helping families find their, their forever home, plant
Right.
their roots, introduce them to a community that has served me so well that I really love. That's not perfect, but no place is. But it's a really good life. And so becoming a real estate agent for me is a little bit about that. It's really introducing people to my home community, to the area that I grew up in, to the doctors, to the schools, just so that's where I'm at right now.
And I appreciate that. There's so many different things that I want to highlight. One of the biggest things that I wanted to highlight is your awareness of what was working for you at any given moment, what was going to help you stay in alignment with what your values were. And how at the beginning of the conversation you said, kind of your world is your family, and that at different points, especially once COVID hit, that you recognized traveling back into the city was going to take you away from your family because there was time that you had to commute that you couldn't control. So that there was always this, sounded like kind of an intentionality with connecting with your values. And I highlight that because at times, mothers, people, when they're kind of lost in a path or not sure where to go, a great step is to reconnect with your values. And that's something that you have done so beautifully. And then also, I wanted to highlight that at different points in our life, what fulfills us or gives us purpose and meaning can change also. And so you've mentioned now this, you've had during COVID this time to kind of reflect and think and what was going to fill you up, and that you found this real estate opportunity and a way to give back to this community that is so important to you, that you intentionally moved back to because you wanted to be able to provide that for your family, and now you get to in turn provide it for others. So can you talk a little bit more about what fulfillment means to you?
Fulfillment means to me being there for my kids. I don't have to drive every carpool. I don't want to drive every carpool, but I want to be there whenever they need me. And I want to be there in times that they don't need me to. So that's certainly, that was always my main goal. And then I realized that it's not my only passion. It's the thing that's most important, but I think that I'm my best self when I'm able to do several different things that are important to me. I'm my best self when I'm kind of pulled in a few different directions. I like being busy. I think I secretly, not so secretly, enjoy being overstretched a little bit in my daily limits. I like having this kind of purpose that I'm doing for myself, I'm doing for my family, I'm doing for other people, I'm helping. I've been running school, being a school volunteer for the kids and running, not the little things, but like the big festivals and the big days. And sometimes I look at myself and I go, why am I doing this? This is crazy. But I signed up for it. Sometimes without, I think, even thinking it through, but I just knew that I wanted to be there for them. And I also want to be there for myself. During those COVID years, as wonderful as it was, I felt my brain getting a little stale. I actually felt like the slowdown of not having work to
Mm-hmm.
kind of like inject into my
Yeah.
brain waves and challenge me. And I missed that. I missed that. But I want to control the level of challenge. I don't want to go so far above my capacity.
Mm-hmm.
But I kind of try and stay in this sweet spot, um, where I can do the things that I want to do, and I can do them well. They don't need to be perfect, but I want to be able to do a few things well.
And I wanted to highlight so many different parts of that. One thing is to point out that both of us were mothers, but that is just one part of us. It's a very important part. I can speak to for myself, and I can also now speak to you because you've shared how important it is. But that is only one part of who Bari is. It's only one part who Andrea is. And I love that you understand who you are. And it could be changing at any given moment, but you really understand that you like to be challenged, that you want to have that volunteer aspect, you want to have that family aspect, you want to be able to have that kind of professional challenge as well. And that's really important, recognizing that you are an individual and at any given moment you can be wearing these different hats, but that motherhood is a part of you, but not the only thing about you. And I think, again, it's hard as mothers because we give so much, but that it's so important to recognize that we are individuals. We were individuals before we became mothers, and that's just a new hat when you become a mother that you add on. It's a very important one, but that you want to continue to do the things that challenge you. I also wanted to kind of highlight and ask, because this is now the second time that you've mentioned something, and I think it's important to bring up, is that you wanted to do things well. What does the word well kind of mean to you?
I want to feel good about what I'm doing. I want to feel like I've given it my all.
Mm-hmm.
I've never needed to be the best at anything. I've never needed to be the most successful. In all my years working in fashion, it was never really about title for me. It was always about quality of life.
Mm-hmm.
So even, during those obvious weeks and days where I commuted, I also worked from home. And so I was for a while able to really manage both, especially when the kids were younger. And then as the kids grew and their needs changed, my doing something well changed.
Mm-hmm.
So now just being there to do carpool or packing lunch wasn't enough. Even being home for bedtime every night wasn't enough.
Mm-hmm.
I want them to see me in their schools working for them and helping the places that their environments thrive. And so I think well for me just kind of keeps changing.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Sounds like a
even
little bit more like, in my mind, instead of the word well, what about kind of balancing it? That at any given point, the balance kind of changes, and that how much emphasis you put on one area kind of changes.
well, there's
Is that
only
kind
so
of
many hours in a day,
exactly?
certainly, and it takes a village.
Mm-hmm.
That saying will never, ever, ever get old. It certainly
Yep.
stands the test of time. It takes a village. And I think part of why I wanted to kind of venture into this new career is because I have a village and I speak to so many people. I was always trying to get people to either move here or if they were not convince them to move here, but
Right.
just tell them what the benefits are of this community,
Mm-hmm.
and this type of community. So it takes a village, and I have a village here.
And I appreciate that because in order to balance all the different things that you are talking about and to stay fulfilled, we need our village, we need our support system, and we also need to be careful and set boundaries. Because you mentioned that there is only 24 hours in a day. And in order to be able to do something well or to balance or whatever, we need to be able to set up kind of boundaries.
I'm working on that. I'm working on boundary
okay.
setting.
So that was my question for you. If you could kind of talk about if you're working on it, and I admire that you share that you're working on it, because we are all work in progress, and at any given moment we need to continue to grow. And you talk about how you've liked change, so I really admire that you've recognized that. So in your efforts of working on it, kind of what does it look like for you right now, boundary setting?
Boundary setting is really hard.
Mm-hmm.
Boundary setting is really hard. I think a part of what comes with spreading yourself thin and liking and enjoying the challenge and wanting to do things well and kind of having the courage to start a new career. The year I turned 40, it takes a lot of effort and time. And sometimes, and I have a lot of friends, and I'm really social, and I love going out, and I love going out with my family, and I love traveling, and I love to do all of these things. That sometimes boundaries are the things that kind of go by the wayside a little bit. Yeah. I'm one of those, like, up until midnight, 1 a.m., finishing the work that I know I need completed the following day. I used to do this in my job, in my fashion job too. I would stay up to all hours of the night, finishing what I was due the following day. And I would kind of like press send sporadically so that I could go to the mommy and me class, and I would press send. Go to the, to lunch with friends, and then press send. And so my life kind of worked with this balancing act. Yep. That I'm not sure really had so many boundaries, because you are supposed to be doing things, you're supposed to be focusing on what you're doing when you're doing it. And I don't think that's kind of how I did things. And so now I'm trying to do that more. So I'm setting the boundaries of, when I'm working, I'm working. When I'm out for lunch, I'm going to try and really give my effort to give my attention to my friends, because you can't ask your village for help without giving back to your village.
Right. For sure.
And that's both friends, family, everybody in between. And so I'm trying to set boundaries that give myself the attention that I'm also going to need to stay energetic, not wear myself down. I have days and times for work. I have days and times for my family. I have days and times for my friends. I make days and times for myself. I started playing tennis during COVID. I kind of picked it back up from when I was a kid. And that has been incredibly therapeutic for me. I'm not so good, but I try hard. And for me, it's really about it being therapeutic. I think when I stopped working full time when COVID started, I for a little while, I kind of felt like tennis was my full-time job. Yeah. I know that sounds silly, but it was really about making the time for myself for the first time. And I was really lucky that my husband and my kids supported that. It's about just making time for myself, setting those boundaries that this time is for me. It's an hour and a half, a couple days a week. And I need this time so that I can continue on with the rest of my day and give to all the people that I want to give to. So it's definitely, it's definitely something I think about every day, is how to set boundaries so that I can continue to do things well.
And it's important because it sounds, you said that, it's a work in progress, but it sounds like you have a lot of things that you are doing, that as far as the time that you're kind of compartmentalizing when you want to focus on a certain area of your life. I think also something important to highlight is that kind of the present moment living, that when you are in your working hours, you're focused on your work. When you are with your friends or whoever it is, face to face, that you're trying to be as present as possible. And I think that's very challenging for so many of us because we are so digitally connected. And at any given moment, we can pick up our phone, and especially being, that you are in charge of your own business, you can easily, look and have access to your business wherever you go. So
it's hard having your own business. It takes so much more intention.
100%.
Before, it was, in my old career, it was like kind of clockwork. I knew exactly what I needed to do, when I needed to do it, where I needed to be. I had schedules planned out for days and weeks and months.
Right.
And now it's totally unexpected. And so everything I do, I try and do it with intention. And I can't always, I'm like saying the kind of the nicer parts. And I can't always do it. I can't always do everything, and I can't always be at all the places that I want to be. But I do. I try and wake up and set my intentions for the day, or for the week, or for the weekend. And I kind of try and work around that.
And going back to, you said it's not always the way, you're focusing on kind of some of the positive things, but in those moments when there are some kind of challenges and things don't go your way, what do you kind of lean
on? I lean on my parents and my family and my friends to pick up the slack. And I am really, really lucky that I have those people to lean on. It's been a rough year. I got my real estate license. I took 72 hours of classes.
Wow.
And I did what a lot of people do in many, many months in 1 month to the day.
Wow.
And
that's impressive.
Took a lot out of me. But I had to set that intention because I knew that if I didn't do it quickly, I might stretch it out too long, that it would be harder to accomplish. And so that month was really hard. And then the months that followed were the tests, and still I'm learning something new every day. I have some really amazing mentors at work that have become friends and reconnected with people from my past. And everybody's been really supportive. But this is not an easy industry. This is, as much as I want to help people, find their community and find their home, it's not easy. It's not an easy time to get into real estate, and it's just not an easy thing at all. Especially when you're trying to do it, honestly, and I'm sure everybody's honest, but when you're trying to take a different approach, where I'm not trying to just sell somebody something that they don't want. I want to sell somebody something that they're going to be really happy in the end. And these are also people in my community.
Right.
So I do not want anyone to turn around one day and say, "Oh my God, she sold us something like a poor bill of goods." This is personal. This is personal.
Yeah. For sure. I mean, in some cases, though, there are only so many things that we can control. And I always like to point that out to people that at any given moment, we can control only so much. And one thing that we really can't control is how someone's going to respond to something. We can try with the best intentions and be the most sincere and authentic and professional person. And that's on us. But once we deliver that information or service or whatever it is, that's up to the person that's receiving it to choose how they're going to interpret it. And we, as much as we want and wish we could say, but no, that's not what we meant. That's their interpretation of it. And unfortunately, like I said, that's something that we can't control. And again, it goes back to, you've mentioned so many times, the support system, leaning in when you build your boundaries, when you build your support system in those times of challenge, recognizing that it's okay not to be able to do everything and that we sometimes need to call for help, call for backup. Like you mentioned, it takes a village.
I call for a lot of backup.
And there's nothing wrong with that. That's the smart woman that's trying to do so much and recognizing we could probably all do it. Like do it all, or, we can. Mothers are amazing and we can definitely do it all. If we can give birth to a baby, we can do it all. But the question is, at what cost? And when you're saying that you really want to stay energized and have the energy to do all these other things that are important to you, it's at what cost? So call in some backup. There's nothing wrong with that. That doesn't mean that you're a total failure.
Exactly. Definitely. It actually means the opposite of being a failure, because 100%. If you have backup to call for, you've given that person it at some point, hopefully, and you're kind of just, you have each other's back.
Totally. I mean, people have teams. That's why people have teams. And that at any given moment, recognizing that. The one other thing that I wanted to ask about is with boundary setting, are there any things that are kind of your non-negotiables? That these are the things that Bari must have whatever at any given moment in order to kind of survive and keep feeling fueled?
I guess the non-negotiable is to continue to be myself through this entire process. And so the things that I need all of these things. Like I need time for myself. I need time with my friends. I need time with my family. To be able to give me the things that I want. I want to have a career. I want to work. I want to play tennis. But the things I need and the things I want, they go hand in hand. But so I would say that all of these things and keeping my balance, not every day, I don't need to have a balanced day, or some weeks are obviously not balanced, but like an overarching balance.
And how did you discover all these things? Like kind of what's you and what you need?
Well, I'm discovering it now. It's changing. I think it's, approaching, I just had this milestone birthday, and it's not really about age. Right. It's just about new intentions for this next part of my life. And it really is a next part of my life. Like not only just with a milestone birthday, but with, my oldest child going into middle school and my youngest child leaving nursery school and being an incoming kindergartner and me starting a new career and my siblings moving to Florida and, just we have a great big family, my in-laws and my sister-in-laws and his nieces and nephews. And we're just trying to make sure we don't waste any of these precious moments. And we don't take anything for granted.
For sure.
And so I'm kind of approaching this new year with a slightly different intention. And I will let you know how it goes.
And I look forward to seeing kind of the journey. And that's so important that people kind of check in with yourself. That it also doesn't have to be, I like to say, there's all this pressure at the beginning of a new year. This is now, as we're recording this is, the start of summer. And at any moment, you can check in with yourself and set new intentions, that it doesn't have to be at the beginning of the new year, when the ball drops and all that. That's a whole lot of pressure. So at any given moment, you can check in and change and say what's working and what's not. And it sounds like you're doing that.
You know what? The changes that I made in my life this past year are pushing me to do it. But I like that. I like to be pushed. I like to be challenged. I like to try and figure out the balance that's going to work best for me.
And any kind of parting wisdom that you would like to give our guests as they go out and write their next page in their next chapter and trying to find the balance or boundaries?
It's both hard and exciting to write a next chapter, especially put something that you're really putting out there for everyone to see, whether it's on social media and me kind of announcing that I'm doing this new career. That I think took a lot for me. And so now I'm just trying to follow up, and I'm trying to prove to myself that I can do this, and I know I can. But I still need to prove it to myself. I still need to prove it to myself. And I think just kind of setting your intentions, calling for backup, having a village, and remembering what's important and how lucky we are, is my takeaways from life so far and how to kind of move forward.
Well, thank you so much. You've shared so much with us today, and I am excited for you to be a part of the Next Chapter community. I look forward to watching you as you continue to grow and evolve and build this beautiful, balanced, life that you are following. And I know you can do it. So thank you, Bari.
So much. Thank you so much, Andrea, for inviting me on your podcast. It meant a lot, and
thank you. I appreciate it.